Adrift in the void. The emergency lights bathed the bridge of the stellar envoy in a pulsing crimson glow. Commander Nira Trizin wiped blue blood from her scaled brow as she surveyed the damage. The diplomatic vessel had never been designed for combat, and the surprise attack had left them crippled in seconds. "Status report," she demanded, her 4 eyes blinking independently as she tried to focus through the pain of her injuries. Her first officer, Kelvin, a tall Malorian with translucent skin that revealed his nervous system glowing with stress patterns, checked the nearest functioning console. Main engines destroyed. Life support at 38% and dropping. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 5. "We've lost 12 crew members." Trizin closed her lower set of eyes in momentary grief before snapping them open again. Morning would come later, if they survived. "Communications. Long-range transmitters are down," reported Illyri, the communications specialist. Her feathered crest lay flat against her skull, a sign of extreme distress among Aviani. "Short range is functional, but—" She trailed off. "But what?" Trizin demanded. "But there's no one to hear us," Kelvin finished. "We're in the Obsidian sector. No regular traffic for light years." Trizin felt her heart sink. The Obsidian sector was avoided by all sensible travelers, a region of dead systems and strange gravitational anomalies. Their navigation officer had plotted a course that skirted its edge to save time on their diplomatic mission. Now that decision might cost them their lives. "The attack wasn't random," said Security Chief Drav, a hulking Turigan whose rocky skin was cracked across his chest, where he'd taken a direct hit. "They disabled our engines first, then communications. They knew exactly where to hit us. Pirates don't usually have that kind of tactical precision," Trizin mused. "They weren't just pirates," Drav growled. "The energy signature of their weapons was Krell." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The Krell were harvesters. They didn't take prisoners or resources. They took body parts, various species organs, tissues, and neural matter fetched high prices in the black markets across the unregulated territories. "Why didn't they board us?" asked Illyri, her voice barely a whisper. Drav's stone-like features formed what passed for a grimace. "The last volley damaged their assault craft. I saw it venting atmosphere as they jumped to FTL. But they'll be back, with reinforcements." Trizin moved to the central holographic display, which flickered weakly. "How long until life support fails completely?" Their engineer, Pax, a small, 6-limbed Quillian, scuttled forward. Unlike most of his methodical species, he spoke rapidly when stressed. 26 hours at current consumption rates, Commander. I've sealed off the damaged sections, rerouted emergency power, but there's only so much I can do with the primary generator destroyed. The backup cells were never meant to sustain a crew of 42 for more than a day. 37 now, Kelvin corrected quietly. We lost 5 more in medical. Trizin felt the weight of command crush down on her shoulders. She'd been the youngest Savorian ever appointed to command a diplomatic vessel. Now she might be the youngest to lose one with all hands. "Options?" she asked. "We could power down all non-essential systems," Pax suggested. "Put most of the crew in emergency hibernation. That might extend life support to 40 hours for a skeleton crew." "And then what?" Drav growled. "Die more slowly." "What about the escape pods?" Illyri asked. Kelvin shook his head, the luminescent patterns in his skin pulsing with distress. "The attack damaged the launch mechanisms. We have 40 functioning pods, but they're trapped in their bays. I can try to repair." Pax began. "With what?" Drav interrupted. "Half our tools were vented into space along with Deck 5. Trizin slammed her scaled hand down on the console. "Enough. Squabbling won't save us." She straightened, assuming the formal posture that had carried her through diplomatic crises across 17 star systems. "Pax, implement your hibernation plan. Drav, organize security teams to guard our remaining supplies. I don't want panic leading to hoarding. Kelvin, work with medical to prepare hibernation protocols. Illyri, keep broadcasting an emergency signal on all frequencies. Even though no one will hear it, Illyri asked, her feathers drooping further. Someone might, Trizin replied, with more confidence than she felt. This is a Galactic Alliance vessel. We represent 17 species and 14 worlds. I refuse to believe this is how our mission ends. As the bridge crew dispersed to carry out her orders, Trizin allowed herself one private moment of doubt. They were far from established trade routes, in a sector known for strange disappearances. The Krell had attacked them intentionally and would return to harvest whatever. The purge wasn't about containment, Chen added quietly. It was about elimination. 7 human colonies were completely sterilized before we could evacuate them. Billions died. Trizin felt sick. The Ursans were now respected members of the Alliance Security Council, dignified, philosophical beings known for their diplomatic skills. The idea that they had participated in genocide was difficult to process. Those responsible are long dead, Rice continued, his voice softening slightly. Modern Alliance citizens aren't accountable for ancient crimes. But humanity learned a harsh lesson about revealing our strengths too openly. He gestured around at the advanced ship. We rebuilt in secret, watching from the shadows, developing technologies that would ensure our survival if we were ever discovered again. And now, Trizin asked, why reveal yourselves to us? Because some things cannot be ignored indefinitely, Rice replied. The Krell harvesting operations have expanded dramatically in recent years. Your diplomatic mission to negotiate peace between the Ursans and the Free Worlds Coalition was going to expose evidence of this expansion, though you didn't know it. Trizin's 4 eyes widened in surprise. Our mission was routine diplomatic work, peace negotiations that have been ongoing for years. The Coalition has been gathering evidence of Ursan involvement with Krell operations, Chen explained. They plan to present it during these talks, forcing the issue into the open. The attack on your vessel wasn't random. It was a calculated move to prevent those negotiations from occurring. Before Trizin could process this revelation, a human officer approached and whispered something to Captain Rice. The captain nodded and turned back to Trizin. Commander, your full crew has now been evacuated from the Stellar Envoy. All injured personnel are responding well to treatment. Would you like to address them? Trizin straightened her posture. Despite the shocking information she'd just received, her first duty remained to her crew. Yes, I would. This way, Chen directed, leading them from the Strategic Command Center through a series of corridors. As they walked, Trizin observed more of the strange contrasts that characterized the human vessel. Some sections featured technology so seamlessly integrated it was nearly invisible. In others, exposed conduits and manual interfaces suggested deliberate technological regression. Your ship is inconsistent, she noted aloud. Chen nodded. Intentionally so. The Harbinger was designed to be unpredictable, both in appearance and function. Enemy scanning technology typically looks for patterns, for recognizable systems architecture. We build in chaos. They arrived at a large chamber where most of the Stellar Envoy's uninjured crew had gathered. The space had been modified to accommodate various species' environmental needs. Different atmospheric pockets, gravity adjustments, and temperature zones that allowed each crew member to find comfort. Kelvin approached immediately, the luminescence in his translucent skin pulsing with anxiety. Commander, is it true? The humans say the Krell are returning with a battle fleet. Trizin nodded grimly. In approximately 8 hours, the humans have been tracking their movements. A murmur ran through the assembled crew. Most looked frightened, some disbelieving, a few openly hostile toward their human hosts. Trizin raised her hands for silence. I know this situation is unprecedented. None of us expected to encounter humans, a species most believed extinct or mythical. Yet here, as if on cue, a series of lights suddenly illuminated along the massive ship's hull, revealing a name written in ancient characters that the translation matrix struggled to interpret. UNSC Harbinger. Then a new message came through the speakers, no longer in pulses but in words, heavily accented but understandable through their translation systems. Diplomatic vessel Stellar Envoy, this is Captain Reyes of the human warship Harbinger. We detected your distress signal. Prepare for emergency docking and evacuation. The ghost ship arrives. Complete silence enveloped the bridge of the Stellar Envoy as the crew struggled to process what they were hearing. Humans, a species that existed primarily in historical texts and dubious entertainment holograms, had somehow appeared in the emptiness of the Obsidian sector, piloting a warship of impossible proportions. This has to be a trick, Drav finally growled, his rocky skin grinding as he clenched his massive fists. The Krell are known to use psychological warfare. They could be spoofing communications to lure us into lowering our defenses. Trizin considered this possibility. The timing was suspiciously convenient, attacked and left for dead in a desolate sector, only to be approached by creatures of legend offering rescue. Scan their vessel, she ordered. I want to know what we're dealing with. Pax scuttled between engineering stations, his 6 limbs working in perfect coordination despite his obvious stress. The hull material is unlike anything in our database, Commander. It's absorbing 98% of our scan emissions. I'm getting minimal energy readings, but there's definitely a massive power source at the core. Their shielding technology must be extraordinarily advanced. Life signs? Trizin asked. Unknown, Pax replied. If there are biological entities aboard, their ship is blocking those readings as well. Illyri's feathers trembled as she monitored the communications array. Commander, they're transmitting again. The accented voice returned, carrying an unmistakable note of command. Your vessel's structural integrity is failing. We detect multiple hull breaches and critical systems damage. You have fewer than 20 standard hours before complete life support failure. We are extending a docking collar. Prepare your crew for evacuation. Trizin felt a chill run through her scales. Their internal assessment had calculated 26 hours, not 20. Either this Captain Reyes was making an educated guess, or their scans could penetrate the Stellar Envoy's hull with disturbing precision. Should we respond? Illyri asked. Before Trizin could answer, Kelvin's voice rose with alarm. Commander, they're approaching. The warship is moving into position above our dorsal docking port. Through the observation window, Trizin watched as the massive black vessel maneuvered with impossible grace for its size, casting the Stellar Envoy into shadow. A section of the larger ship's hull began to reconfigure, plates shifting and interlocking, until they formed what appeared to be a docking mechanism. That's not a standard Galactic Alliance docking collar, Pax observed nervously. I'm not sure our port will be compatible. As if in answer to his concern, a beam of pale blue light projected from the human ship, sweeping across the Stellar Envoy's hull. They're scanning us, Pax reported. The light vanished, and the docking mechanism on the warship continued to transform, its components shifting and adjusting until, to the amazement of everyone watching, it had reconfigured itself into a perfect match for their dorsal port. Adaptive technology, Kelvin whispered, the luminescence in his nervous system pulsing with what might have been awe or terror. They analyzed our docking port design and reconfigured their own in less than 10 seconds. Trizin made her decision. Illyri, open a channel. When the communications officer nodded, Trizin straightened her posture in the formal manner of Sivorian diplomats. This is Commander Nira Trizin of the Galactic Alliance diplomatic vessel Stellar Envoy. We acknowledge your offer of assistance, but request identification and clarification of your intentions. The response came almost immediately. Commander Trizin, we are who we say we are. Your historical records of humanity may be incomplete or distorted, but we assure you, we exist. As for our intentions, we have monitored your situation and determined that without intervention, your crew will perish. We choose not to allow that. Why? Trizin asked simply. There was a pause before Captain Reyes responded, his voice carrying a hint of what might have been amusement. Because we can help, and because we've been watching long enough." Before Trizin could inquire what that cryptic statement meant, the human continued. "We've analyzed your ship's damage. We can provide emergency power to stabilize your life support temporarily, but a full evacuation will be necessary. Your vessel cannot be salvaged." Trizin looked to her officers. Kelvin's skin had taken on a pale green hue of uncertainty, while Drav's rocky face remained set in suspicious lines. Illyri's feathers were flattened against her skull, and Pax's limbs twitched with nervous energy. "Your crew appears to number 37 individuals of various species," Captain Rice continued. "We have prepared appropriate environmental accommodations for all known physiologies in the Galactic Alliance Registry." This statement sent a shock through the bridge crew. The fact that these humans knew the exact number of survivors suggested their scanning technology could indeed penetrate the stellar invoice hull completely. More disturbing was their apparent familiarity with the various environmental needs of Alliance species. "Commander," Kelvin spoke quietly, "if they wanted to harm us, they could have done so already. Our shields are down, weapons systems destroyed, and life support failing. We have little choice." "We always have a choice," Trizin replied, but she knew Kelvin was right. She addressed the human again. "Captain Rice, we accept your assistance. We have injured crew members who will need immediate medical attention." "Understood, Commander. Our medical facilities are prepared. We will establish an energy transfer first to stabilize your systems, then begin evacuation of your wounded. Please stand by." True to the human's word, the bridge consoles suddenly flickered, then strengthened. Emergency lighting switched to standard illumination as power flowed into the stellar invoice-depleted systems. "Power levels rising," Pax reported with astonishment. "They're feeding our systems directly." "But how? Our power coupling technology should be incompatible with." He stopped mid-sentence, staring at his readouts. "They've adapted again. Their energy transfer mechanism reconfigured to match our intake systems." "Drav," Trizin decided, "assemble a security detail. I'll lead the first group aboard to assess the situation before we begin full evacuation. Kelvin, you have the bridge. Pax, prepare our most critically injured for immediate transfer." Drav looked as if he wanted to object to her leading the boarding party, but held his tongue. As a Taurigan warrior, he understood chain of command, even if he disagreed with the decision. 30 minutes later, Trizin stood at the dorsal docking port with Drav and 4 security officers representing different Alliance species. They had armed themselves with standard sidearms, though Trizin harbored no illusions about their effectiveness if the humans proved hostile. The docking collar from the Harbinger made contact with a gentle vibration that ran through the deck plating. There was a series of mechanical sounds as the systems synchronized. Then a green indicator light appeared above the airlock. "Stand ready," Trizin ordered, "but weapons lowered. We are guests seeking sanctuary, not invaders." The inner door of the airlock slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a pressurized corridor that extended into the human vessel. The lighting was subdued but adequate, with subtle blue guide lights along the floor. The atmosphere that wafted in carried unfamiliar scents, metallic and sharp, yet not unpleasant. "Commander," came Captain Ray's voice over a speaker system, "you may proceed when ready. Our gravity is calibrated to Galactic Alliance standard. Atmosphere is adjusted for multiple species requirements." Trizin took a deep breath and stepped forward, becoming the first Savorian in recorded history to set foot on a human ship. The corridor was wider than those of the stellar envoy, with walls of a dark material that seemed to absorb both sound and light. As they moved deeper into the vessel, Trizin noticed strange geometric patterns etched into the surfaces, similar to the markings visible on the ship's exterior. "Those are navigation guides," said a voice ahead of them. Trizin looked up to see a figure standing at the end of the corridor. He was tall, bipedal, with pale skin and close-cropped dark hair. He wore a uniform of deep blue with silver insignia that Trizin couldn't interpret. His face was unsettling in its alienness, flat, with a protruding nasal structure and eyes that didn't blink in unison like a civilized species. A human. An actual human, not a historical recording or artistic interpretation. Captain Reyes. Trizin asked, her translator hopefully conveying the proper mix of diplomatic respect and caution. The human's mouth curved upward slightly at the corners, a facial expression Trizin recalled from xenobiology classes as a smile, though whether it signified friendliness or aggression depended entirely on context. Executive Officer Elias Chen, the human corrected. Captain Reyes is preparing to receive you in our medical bay, where your injured crew members will be transported directly. I'm here to escort you. Drav moved slightly ahead of Trizin, his rocky. Your vessel is impressive, he said, clearly fishing for information. The human officer inclined his head in acknowledgement. The Harbinger is one of our older ships, but she serves her purpose. He gestured down the corridor. This way, please. Your wounded will be arriving shortly. As they followed Chen deeper into the human warship, Trizin couldn't help but marvel at the contrasts. Some sections featured technology so advanced it bordered on the miraculous, holographic interfaces that responded to proximity, doors that opened before they reached them, as if reading intentions rather than merely detecting movement. Other areas contained equipment that appeared almost primitive. Manual controls, physical switches, and displays with actual moving parts rather than energy projections. Your technology is inconsistent, Trizin observed carefully. Chen glanced back at her, that strange smile appearing again. We find redundancy valuable. Energy systems can be disrupted. Quantum interfaces can be hacked. Sometimes the most reliable solution is also the simplest. They passed several other humans along the way, each nodding respectfully to Chen, while regarding the aliens with expressions Trizin couldn't begin to interpret. They varied considerably in appearance. Different skin tones, heights, facial structures. Far more individual variation than most Alliance species exhibited. Eventually, they reached what appeared to be the medical bay, a large chamber with equipment that hummed with quiet efficiency. Here, more humans moved with purpose, preparing various stations. At the center stood another human, this one older than Chen, with skin several shades darker and close-cropped silver hair. Commander Trizin, the human said, stepping forward. I am Captain Marcus Reyes. Welcome aboard the Harbinger. I apologize for the circumstances of our meeting. Trizin performed the formal greeting gesture of her people. We are grateful for your intervention, Captain. Your appearance was unexpected. Humans are known to be unpredictable. Reyes replied, with what might have been humor. Your injured crew members are being transferred as we speak. Our medical team has studied Alliance physiology extensively and is prepared to treat all 17 species registered in your crew manifest. The casual mention of specific details about their crew sent another ripple of unease through Trizin. How long had these humans been watching them before revealing themselves? As if reading her thoughts, Reyes continued. I understand you have questions, Commander, about us, about why we're here, about what happens next. I promise those will be addressed. But first, let's ensure your crew is safe. A commotion at the far end of the medical bay drew their attention. A team of humans was guiding a hovering stretcher that contained the unconscious form of Trizin's chief engineer, Pax. The Quillion's 6 limbs were secured gently to prevent injury during transport, and monitoring devices were already attached to his exoskeleton. Your engineer suffered significant radiation exposure. A human in different colored clothing explained as they transferred Pax to a treatment station. We're administering targeted cellular regeneration therapy. He should recover fully within 12 hours. That's impossible, Drav muttered. Quillian radiation poisoning at that level is fatal. Our own medical team gave him less than 2 days. The human medical officer, a female with auburn hair pulled back severely from her face, gave Drav what appeared to be a sympathetic look. By your medical standards, yes, but we've had centuries to study xenobiology in isolation. Before Drav could respond, more injured crew members began arriving. Trizin watched in amazement as the human medical team switched effortlessly between treating different species, adjusting their techniques and equipment for each unique physiology. "Your crew will be safe here," Captain Rice assured her. "We've prepared quarters for your uninjured personnel as well. Executive Officer Chen will oversee the complete evacuation of your vessel." "And then?" Trizin asked. "What happens after we're all safely aboard?" Reyes's expression grew more serious. "That's a more complicated question, Commander. The Krell vessel that attacked you has already returned to its base of operations with news of your location. They'll be back, with reinforcements." Trizin felt her scales tighten against her skull. "You know about the Krell? About who attacked us?" "We know a great deal about what happens in this galaxy," Reyes replied, his voice taking on a darker tone. "Far more than the Galactic Alliance might suspect. We've been watching from the shadows for a very long time. But why reveal yourselves now?" Trizin pressed. "Why to us?" Captain Reyes looked past her, his eyes focusing on something distant. "Because sometimes, Commander, you can watch atrocities happen for only so long before you must intervene, and because the Krell have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed." He turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "Rest now. See to your crew. We have approximately 14 hours before the Krell battle group arrives." Trizin felt her hearts skip simultaneously. "Battle group? You mean?" "Yes, Commander," Reyes said grimly. "The vessel that attacked you was merely a scout. The Krell are coming in force, and when they arrive, they will find something they don't expect waiting for them." Uneasy Alliance. 6 hours after boarding the human warship Harbinger, Commander Trizin found herself standing in what the humans called their Strategic Command Center, a large, circular chamber dominated by a holographic projection of the surrounding space. The display showed their position in the Obsidian sector, marked by a pulsing blue light, while a constellation of red markers approached from the galactic east. "Krell vessels," Captain Reyes explained, gesturing toward the red indicators. 17 ships, including 3 Harvester-class vessels and their escort fleet. Drav, who had refused to leave Trizin's side since boarding the human ship, made a sound like grinding stones. "Harvester-class. Those are just rumors in the Alliance. No one has confirmed their existence." "We have," Reyes replied simply. "We've been tracking Krell fleet movements for decades. This particular battle group has been responsible for the disappearance of at least 12 merchant vessels and 2 minor science outposts in the past standard year alone." Trizin studied the holographic display, which offered far more detail than anything available on Alliance ships. "How do you know so much about the Krell?" "They're notoriously secretive. Even our best intelligence agencies have minimal information on their operations." Reyes exchanged a glance with Executive Officer Chen, who nodded almost imperceptibly. The captain pressed a control on the console before him, and a holographic display shifted to show a 3-dimensional representation of a Krell harvester vessel, a grotesque, asymmetrical craft that resembled a bloated parasite more than a ship. "The Krell aren't just pirates or opportunistic raiders," Reyes explained. "They're organized, methodical, and connected to powers within the Galactic Alliance that protect their operations." "Impossible," Drav growled. "The Alliance would never." "Several members of the Alliance Security Council are direct beneficiaries of Krell harvesting," Chen interrupted, his voice cold. "The biocomponents extracted from disappeared ships and outposts fuel a black market in restricted medical technologies, life extension treatments, and neurological enhancements." Trizin felt her scales tighten against her body, a Savorian physiological response to extreme stress. "These are serious accusations, Captain. You're claiming corruption at the highest levels of Alliance government." "Not claiming," Reyes corrected, "stating fact. We have documented evidence of these connections going back nearly 80 years. "If what you say is true," Trizin said carefully, "why haven't you shared this information with the Alliance directly? Why hide in the shadows?" Captain Rice's expression darkened. "History has taught humanity to be cautious about revealing ourselves. The last time we openly participated in galactic politics, it ended with the Purge Wars and our near extinction. The Purge Wars were little more than a historical footnote in modern Alliance education, a brief, brutal conflict that had occurred centuries ago when the young Galactic Alliance had first formed. According to official records, several aggressive species had been contained or relocated for the greater security of peaceful spacefaring civilizations. There was no mention of humanity specifically. Our history records suggest humans chose isolation, Trizin said, trying to reconcile this new information. That you withdrew from galactic affairs voluntarily. A bitter smile crossed Reyes's face. History is written by the survivors, Commander, or in this case, by those who drove us to the brink of annihilation and then rewrote the narrative. The early alliance, led by the Ursan hegemony and several species that no longer exist, decided that humanity's rapid technological advancement and expansionist tendencies posed a threat. Whoever they could. She moved to the observation window, staring out at the unfamiliar stars. The stellar envoy had been on a mission to broker peace between the Ursan hegemony and the Free Worlds Coalition, a delicate negotiation years in the making. If they didn't arrive, tensions might escalate to open warfare. Millions could die because their ship happened to cross paths with Krell harvesters. Commander, Kelvin's voice interrupted her thoughts. You should see this. She turned to find him examining the sensor readings with his natural bioluminescence brightening in what appeared to be confusion. What is it? Something's wrong with our position, he said. According to these readings, we've been moving. That's impossible, Trizin replied. Our engines are destroyed. Not at FTL, but we're definitely drifting at significant sublight speed. Almost as if. As if what? As if we're being pulled by something. Trizin returned to the central console. The sensor data was chaotic, but clear enough to confirm Kelvin's assessment. They were moving through space at roughly 1/8 light speed, far too fast for normal stellar drift. Could it be a gravitational anomaly? She asked. The Obsidian sector is known for them. Possibly, Kelvin admitted. But the trajectory is too precise. We're moving in a straight line. A sudden chill ran down Trizin's spine. Toward what? Before Kelvin could answer, Illyri called out from her station. Commander, I'm receiving something on an extremely low-frequency band. It's not any communication protocol I recognize. Put it through, Trizin ordered. The bridge speakers emitted a series of rhythmic pulses that made no sense to Trizin's ears. They continued for nearly a minute before stopping abruptly. What was that? She asked. Illyri shook her head, feathers quivering. I don't know. It doesn't match any known language pattern in our database. Could it be Krell? Drav asked, his rocky hand moving to his weapon. No, Illyri replied. Krell communications use quantum-encrypted burst transmissions. This is older, almost primitive, but there's a pattern to it. Keep working on it, Trizin ordered. Kelvin, any idea what might be pulling us? Before he could answer, the ship's sensors began emitting a high-pitched alarm. Kelvin's translucent fingers danced across the console. Something just appeared on our scans, he reported, the luminescence in his nervous system flaring bright with surprise. It's massive. Trizin moved to the forward observation window. At first, she saw nothing but the endless void. Then a shadow crossed the stars, a darkness blacker than the space around it, moving with deliberate purpose. Magnify, she ordered, her voice barely a whisper. The window's smart surface enhanced the image, revealing a shape that made Trizin's breath catch in her throat. It was a ship, if such a crude word could describe the monstrosity before them. It was easily 10 times the size of the stellar envoy, its hull a patchwork of black metals that seemed to devour light rather than reflect it. No running lights, no visible propulsion systems, just an enormous void in the shape of a warship. By the 4 moons, Kelvin whispered, his skin now almost transparent with fear. That's what's been pulling us. Scan it, Trizin ordered, fighting to keep her voice steady. Pax worked frantically at the engineering station. I can't get clear readings. It's as if the hull is absorbing our scan waves. It's positioning itself alongside us. Drive reported, weapon now drawn. If it's hostile, we're already dead. Trizin cut him off. They could have destroyed us from a distance. The massive ship came to a relative stop, eerily parallel to their crippled vessel. Up close, Trizin could see that what she'd taken for a solid black hull was actually covered in strange, angular patterns, like script in a language she couldn't comprehend. Commander, Illyri's voice was shaking. I've been cross-referencing that signal pattern with historical archives. It's not in our translation matrix because it's not supposed to exist anymore. Explain, Trizin demanded, unable to tear her eyes from the behemoth outside their window. It's Morse code, Illyri said, her feathers now standing straight up in shock. A binary communication system used by humans. The bridge fell silent. Humans were little more than legends now. Stories told to children about the mysterious species that had vanished from the galactic stage centuries ago. Some claimed they'd gone extinct. Others believed they'd fled to unknown regions after the Purge Wars. A few fringe scholars insisted they still existed, watching from the shadows. That's impossible, Drav growled. Humans are myths. Myths don't build ships, Trizin replied softly. Illyri, what did the message say? The communications officer's voice was barely audible. It said, "Stand by for assistance."